Hello, my name is Justin Loiseau, and I'm a student at UNC Chapel Hill, where I study economics and environmental studies. I'm 22 years old, and I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, today I'm going to tell you about a trip that I made to Uganda in 2008. Uganda is a country located in Africa, in the eastern part of the continent. It has about 4 times as many people as North Carolina and is about twice as big. You all have probably heard of Africa, and you may even have heard of Uganda before. Well, today, I'm going to tell you about my personal experiences there, the people I met, the community I was a part of, the work that I did, and what it's like just on a day-to-day basis. During my time there, I began to realize that what I had seen in The Lion King, or some of the basic ideas that I had about Africa, were wrong, and that, in reality, the lives that Ugandans lead in Africa are both very similar and sometimes different from the lives that we lead here in North Carolina. To get to Uganda, I had to take a plane flight all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe. Has anyone ever been to Europe before? Well, I didn't stop there. Then I went down to Kenya, and then a short flight across to Uganda. When I arrived, it was pitch black outside, and I was a little nervous to be there all by myself. But my night wasn't over yet. I had to make my way from the airport to a nearby village where I would meet my host family for the summer. I had been told that it was supposed to take about an hour and a half, but it didn't. As I came to learn, time in Uganda doesn't have quite the same meaning as time here. If class starts at 8 a.m. at your school, what time do you all show up for school? Well, Ugandans might show up at 9 a.m. or even 10 a.m., but it's not always because they don't want to show up at 8 a.m. As was the case here, the road to my village had flooded, and what was supposed to be a short trip ended up taking 5 hours. In the end, though, I made it. When I first arrived at my host family's house, I was tired and ready for a good night's sleep. To welcome me, my host family had prepared a beautiful fruit basket with all kinds of yummy treats, and a card stuck into the top of a pineapple which said, "You are very welcome, Justin." This is a picture of my host family, and immediately they said that I fit right in because my name started with a J just like all 4 of their names. So my host dad's name was Jabel, my host mother's name was Janet, my host sister's name, in pink, is Jael, and my host brother's name, in blue, is Jason. Just like any younger brother-sister, my host brother and sister were extremely energetic and tons of fun. They always had different games that they wanted to play, like tag or hide and seek, or any of the games that we would play with our little sisters or brothers. Probably my favorite time with my family was dinner time, because since our house didn't have electricity, we were all forced to gather around the dinner table to be able to talk or have any sort of light whatsoever, since my host family only had 1 lantern. But those allowed us a wonderful opportunity at the same time to share in a meal, talk about how our days had been, go over any news or politics that was happening in the area, and just in general get a feel for how the other person was doing. My host mother and father both spoke English, but my little sister and little brother only spoke Luganda, a local dialect. And although English is the official language of Uganda, many people actually don't speak English because unless you go to school, you're not very exposed to English in Uganda. So I took Luganda lessons when I first arrived in Uganda. Just to give you an example of a phrase, if I was to say hello to you, I would say, "Osibye otiano sebo," and then you would say, "Bulungi sebo," and then I would say, and then you would say, And that's our way of acknowledging each other and saying hello. The town where I bike to work every day from my village is called Jinja, and it's directly at the source of the Nile River where it starts from Lake Victoria. In this video, it's Bujagali Falls, and I went there with some of my co-workers because we had some guests from out of town who wanted to see one of the wild and crazy whitewater rapids that the Nile River has to offer. What sports do you all play at your school? Do you enjoy playing soccer? Well, soccer is an extremely important sport in Uganda, and everyone in Uganda enjoys playing soccer, watching soccer, and talking about soccer. And if they don't follow the national Uganda team, they most definitely follow a European league and always have some sort of merchandise, sticker, or shirt to show their allegiance to Manchester United, Chelsea, Barcelona, and all the teams that we sometimes watch in the United States as well. This is a short clip of a game that I was able to go to at the Nelson Mandela National Stadium in Kampala, the capital city of Uganda. Here, the Ugandan Cranes are getting ready to play Angola in one of the World Cup qualifying matches. Now, in the same way that we might have cheerleaders at a sports game in the United States, Uganda actually has an official witch doctor. Now, religion is very important in Uganda, and most Ugandans are either Christian or Muslim, but almost everyone still believes in the power of witchcraft. So this witch doctor is an official witch doctor for the Ugandan Cranes, and his job is to make sure that no evil spells are cast onto our team, and at the same time make sure that he's giving our team positive energy. It was a close game in the first half, but sure enough, in the second half, the Ugandan Cranes pulled away and ended up winning 3-0. There were celebrations to be had. The marketplace is also another very important part of Ugandan life. Now, it's not just a place where most Ugandans buy their food for their meal every day. It's also a gathering point for friends to catch up with each other, for news to be distributed, and for thousands of Ugandans to make a living selling their produce. Markets sometimes stretch even into the night, and you can imagine for these women who are spending all day farming to go to the market, work at the market through the afternoon, and then into the night, it's quite a long day. Speaking of markets, it's funny to see what shows up in a market that you might recognize from back home. So, can anyone tell me what sports team from North Carolina is on this man's jacket? Well, if you guessed the Charlotte Hornets, you're right. This jacket is a Charlotte Hornets jacket, a basketball team that used to be right in Charlotte, North Carolina when I was growing up. Now, in Uganda, there are tons and tons of clothes in the markets that often come from our Goodwill or our Salvation Army stores that have too many and ship them across the Atlantic Ocean all the way over to Africa to be sold again in markets where they can recirculate. So I saw Charlotte Hornets gear, I saw lots of NBA gear in general, I saw UNC gear, I saw lots of different brands, different things that we would see that we would wear every day all the way over in Uganda being worn by Ugandans. Now, bicycles are also a really important mode of transportation in Uganda, and in Jinja, the town where I worked, boda operators were a common way to be able to go short distances, maybe a mile or two around town. So, as you might be able to tell in this picture, all of these men are boda operators, and if you look closely at their bicycles, there's something that's interesting about them. Can anyone tell me what's interesting and different about these bicycles? They all have a cushion on the back. I'll explain why in just a second. So as a boda operator, you, the boda operator, sit on the front of the bicycle in a normal bicycle seat, but your passenger, the person who you're taxiing around from one place to another, will sit over the back tire on a cushion. It's actually a very comfortable and very easy way to get around town. While in Uganda, I worked with an organization that had a lot to do with bicycles. Sometimes they would give bicycles to students who had to walk long distances from their home to school every day. Other times they would give bicycles to women who had to go a long way from their farms to market to be able to sell their goods. And other times they worked with the boda operators that I just mentioned in the last slide. While I was there, I helped this organization to start a bicycle rental business. To buy quality bicycles, I headed to Kampala, the capital city, to be able to get the best bicycles from the best bicycle dealers, and I had to do some heavy negotiating to get a good price. I also had to create a sign for bicycle rentals, and I am not a good artist at all. So I found a local artist and enlisted his help to be able to make a bicycle rental sign for my organization so that everyone would know that you were able to rent bicycles from them. So with 5 bicycles, a bike rack, a bicycle rental sign, and a system in place, our bicycle rental business opened its doors for the first time. And now, 3 years later, it's tripled in size and business is booming. During my time in Uganda, I also had the opportunity to travel around a bit, and one day, while taking a bus from one town to the next, I saw these 2 women, a mother and a daughter, walking side by side. For me, this picture symbolizes a lot of what I saw in Uganda, and it's that everyone does exactly what they're able to do and contributes the most that they can contribute. So here, you have an older woman with a large jerry can on her head, carrying maybe 5, 6, 7 gallons of water back to her home, and then a younger girl who has another jerry can on her head, and maybe her jerry can only has 1 gallon of water on her head, and yet she's carrying just as much as she can compared to the older woman. So in that way, everyone contributes what they can. Uganda is really flat, but it does have mountains in the west, and it also has mountains in the east, which are part of the Rift Valley, which starts all the way up in Syria in the Middle East near the Mediterranean Sea, and travels all the way down even further south in Uganda into Malawi. And just as the mountains of the Rift Valley ebb and flow and get larger and taller at times, the Nile River too changes sizes and gets smaller and larger. Now this is one part of the Nile River, and it's the most compact section of the Nile River in its entire stretch, from Uganda all the way to Egypt, where it empties out. So here is Murchison Falls, and at the center of this falls, the width of the river is only 6 meters wide, about 18 feet, probably about the width of your classroom. And guess what? Because of how much weight and how much pressure is pushed in on all this water, tons and tons of water pushing in on each other, the center of this waterfall is 60 degrees Celsius hot. During my time in Uganda, I realized that my host family and everyone I had met had always been answering my questions and answering what I didn't know about Uganda and telling me things about their lives. But what I realized is that I too had something to tell them. I could tell them about American life and show them different ways that we live in America, and in that way create a mutual exchange and a learning experience for both of us. So, right before I left, I decided to cook my host family an American meal. So for the meal, I prepared sandwiches, deviled eggs, fried okra, ice cream, and candied apples, and it was a big hit with my entire family. And for my host brother and sister, Jael and Jason, it was the first time that they had tasted ice cream, so the cool sensation was especially exciting for them. Before I went to Uganda, I didn't really realize how much of an effect one summer would have on me. The people that I met there, the friendships that I made, the stories that I heard, and the way of life I was honored to be a part of for just a short period of time will always stay with me. Back at UNC, I continue to think about Uganda all the time, and am constantly finding ways to apply the lessons that I learned there to my life here in the States. In 2010, I returned to Uganda to work with another organization and had an equally exciting summer where I learned even more about Uganda. Hopefully, I'll be able to return again, say hi to my host family, check in on the bicycle rental business, and who knows, maybe even cheer on the Ugandan Cranes at another winning soccer match. Thanks so much for listening to this presentation, and to say goodbye in Luganda, you say mwebale. So, mwebale.